Hi guys, and welcome back to this channel full of color, and today I want to talk about eyeshadow brands that work for oily lids, for super oily lids, for very oily lids. But first of all, please make sure you are subscribed, and if you don't want to miss the new videos, just hit that notification bell and you will get notified right away. Just as usual, I leave all the links to my social media in the description box, and as for the eyeshadows I will be mentioning today, I have reviewed some of them separately, I have made tutorials. All of this will be linked down below too. So I have already tried a lot of eyeshadow brands and I have very oily lids, so often I even hear about something that works for oily lids but it still doesn't work for me. Oh, I mean, it works better than something that doesn't work for oily lids, but you know, so annoying. And I have experimented with different brands, and does this even make sense if I don't share my experience? So that's what we are here for. I have some palettes here with me. And aside from that, I have two bowls of eyeshadow. Literally, guys. So that's one. Here are some palettes and some singles, you know. And that's another one. The small bowl. You know, just a tiny bit of eyeshadow here. Nothing much. And probably, just probably, that may be that you are not as obsessed as I am, and you're just looking for a perfect eyeshadow to work for you, and you have very oily lids, and you just don't know where to start. Because of course trying every brand is kind of expensive. Trust me, I know. Let's start with something that doesn't work, but before I say anything, all the eyeshadows have been tested on a primer and usually without setting powder. Setting powder kind of makes things a little bit better, but this is not an answer to everything either. As for the primers, I would recommend the Smashbox transparent primer. For the lids, also the MAC 24 Hours Eye Base, but not their paint pots. I know there are a lot of people who recommend paint pots for oily lids, and probably they do work for moderately oily lids, but not for very oily lids. I have tried paint pots with the same eyeshadows that do work with the eye base that I'm talking about, and with the paint pots they started creasing in like 4 or 5 hours. With the eye base they do not. Also, I have tried Urban Decay Primer Potion as my eye base, and well, it kind of works decently. The thing I don't like about it is that it is tinted. I prefer transparent primers, but if you're okay with that, I think you can use that one too. Setting sprays for me don't really make a difference, honestly. I've tried Urban Decay All Nighter, I've tried the NYX setting spray. With or without setting spray, the same lasting power of the eyeshadow. So yes, let's start with the eyeshadows that in my opinion don't work. And these are, first of all, the NYX eyeshadows. They're singles, as well as one of the palettes that I have. That is why I never buy NYX eyeshadows anymore, because they just crease on me almost instantly. I once used this black eyeshadow for a look, and it started creasing, with a primer of course, even before I finished the look, you know, so I was applying the rest of my makeup and this thing started creasing. I corrected it, fixed it with a lot of setting powder, and well, somehow this way it lasted through my taking the photos, but no, never again. Another thing that I've tried that absolutely does not work was the Kiko Stick eyeshadow. I honestly use this for the lips on top of a lipstick. For the eyes, no, it does not work. Neither with the primer nor without. It just creases after maybe, I don't know, maybe an hour or so. Now let's get to a brand which is kind of tricky because it both works and doesn't work, meaning some products don't work. This is the Lime Crime Lid Light eyeshadow. This one is from the Fairy Garden collection, and oh my god, it doesn't work at all. Also, the Diamond Dew eyeshadows don't work either, guys. I use one of the Diamond Dews with a clear base as a topper, but I use it very carefully, and by itself it creases. Now the thing that did work for me was the Lime Crime Birthday Palette. For these shadows the lasting power was just fine, and also from what I've heard, The quality of the Venus palettes is good and they really last on oily lids, but I cannot comment here because I haven't tried the Venus ones. However, judging from this one, the palettes actually should work. The thing with this Fairy Garden eyeshadow is that it is more buttery and the Diamond Dew's liquid, and overall, guys, I would say that if you have very oily lids, most liquid eyeshadows will not work. Now, something that kind of works but not very well was for me the Baby Bed Beauty eyeshadow. I have a matte and 2 metallics, but honestly I've only tried the matte so far. And it does last for a few hours on me, but not more. So if you need a makeup for like 2-3 hours, I don't know, to just go out and then go back home, that's okay. If you need the makeup for 10 hours, no, I don't think so. Now you're probably all upset nothing works for oily lids, but no, there are a lot of things that do work. Let's start with my current favorite eyeshadow brand so far. And this is Sugarpill. I have tried a lot of their eyeshadows. I have tried the singles. I have tried the Fun Size palette. I have tried one of their capsule collection palettes. And all the eyeshadows last perfectly on very oily lids, on a primer of course. And the metallics that I'm, by the way, wearing right now last just as well as the mattes. Also, one more thing about the Sugarpill eyeshadows, they blend so well. Like the best blending ever out of all the eyeshadows. So I do really recommend those if you have very oily lids. The next eyeshadow brand that lasts just great is the Jeffree Star Cosmetics. I have tried their Jawbreaker palette and their Mini Controversy palette. The pigmentation is great, the blendability is also good, and they do last really well, both metallics and matte. They can last the whole day. Next up, the brand that is performing great on oily lids is Urban Decay. I have tried their metallics and their mattes, and I also have their Old Electric palette, which had way more mattes, and they all lasted just great. They blended well. The pigmentation was good, though I have heard that the collection of 2020, that colorful one, the wired one, was not too good in terms of the pigmentation of the eyeshadow. However, as far as I know, for the lasting power, it's still good. And also I have tried a few singles, mostly metallics. They last just as great. Another brand with great lasting power is of course MAC Cosmetics. Oh my god, these eyeshadows can last forever and ever and ever. Also, I have tried their metallics, I have tried their mattes, I have tried singles, I have tried palettes. There are also some older palettes that I had that I'm not showing now because they can't be found anymore. Anyway, MAC is great in terms of lasting. The blendability, in my opinion, for the mattes can sometimes be tricky and is not always perfect. However, it is very good. It is still very good. Another brand that lasted really great on me was the Anastasia Beverly Hills, from which I've got the Norvina Volume 2 palette, and it lasted really well. It lasted the whole day. However, the blendability of these eyeshadows is not very good. You can watch my review and tutorial on this particular palette if you like. It does have a great color story in my opinion, but I would not buy any more Norvina volumes because they're just very difficult to work with. Now at this point, once again, you might be upset and thinking, so do only expensive eyeshadows last on oily lids? And the answer is no, 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 no. We've got cheaper analogs, and this is Juvia's place. Yes, it really lasts on oily lids. Here I have the Wahala palette and the Nubian Royal palette. They both have metallics and mattes in them, and they both, both metallics and mattes last well on the eyelids. There is a slight problem with the pigmentation, meaning that the pigmentation of the Juvia's Place mattes, the metallics are fine, of the Juvia's Place mattes is not as great as that of Sugarpill or Urban Decay, for example, but they're much cheaper and at the same time they last just as well. So this is worth giving it a try, especially if you don't want to spend too much on your next eyeshadow palette. And also here in this little bowl I have another eyeshadow brand which works great for oily lids. Also here I have metallic colors, I have matte colors, I have some glitter toppers, and even multi-chromes. All these are loose pigments, and the brand is called Tammy Tanuka. This is a Russian brand, however they do deliver internationally, and I highly recommend those. The pigments themselves are really affordable. This is an indie brand. The shipping to your country can be expensive if you live far away. However, if you buy like a dozen of them or even half a dozen, I think it will already be worth it. I will show them up close right now. I hope you guys can see the pigments. I can't lift them up to show to you. Look at the multi-chrome shift. Oh, and while we are zoomed in, today my eyelids are wearing mostly the Sugarpill Capsule Collection C3 palette, and here I have Lime Crime Birthday palette, and here I have Tammy Tanuka Yellow Loose Pigment. I use these Tammy Tanuka pigments all the time. I have worn them for the whole day and they last really perfectly. Now let's go to some brands that I haven't tried the whole range of eyeshadows from, but those that I've tried lasted well. Another more affordable brand is Colourpop. I have only tried these two Super Shock eyeshadows from them. They were both metallic, they lasted great. I'm not sure how mattes behave, and I'm not sure how the eyeshadows in the palettes behave, but I have a reason to believe that they should last well too, since these two lasted just fine. I also tried some Makeup Forever metallic single eyeshadows and they lasted perfectly. I haven't tried their mattes, but I think they will last well too. Because usually if the metallics stay on well, this also goes for the mattes, because mattes are usually slightly drier than the metallics, so they can have a bit of problem with pigmentation, but usually not with the lasting power if the metallics don't have this problem. See what I mean? So it can be vice versa sometimes, that the mattes last well, but the metallics don't. But if the metallics last well, you're usually pretty safe, though of course there can be exceptions. Another brand that I have only one eyeshadow from, but I love it, is Suva Beauty. Lasts really great. Inglot, this is a European brand, and I have two matte eyeshadows with shimmers here, and they lasted perfectly on me. They're not very pigmented, they require a bit of layering, but they do blend well. I recently tried Fenty Beauty eyeshadows. This is Pastel Frost, and as you can see, all the colors here are metallic, and all of them lasted well. So once again, I have a good reason to believe that their mattes will also last well. This is quite pricey though, but very convenient to carry around, it's so small. Another brand that I've only tried metallic eyeshadows from is KVD Vegan Beauty. I have only tried their Alchemist palette eyeshadows. I have tried them by themselves, not just as toppers, and they worked nicely on my lids. I saved the fancy for the last. Dior palette from last year with metallic colors worked perfectly on my lids. I have never tried their mattes, and these are the only eyeshadows that I have tried from them. They do work great. They are really expensive. Oof, look at us! We've finished the video with this bowl in no time. So now guys, you know which eyeshadow brands are safe to buy for very oily lids, which have a good probability of being good for oily lids like Colourpop, and I'll just quickly go through my favorites. Just as I mentioned, Sugarpill is my current eyeshadow favorite because the blendability, the pigmentation, it's just so awesome. Now for metallic colors, actually all of these brands that I have mentioned here blend well. As for the mattes, those that blend also really well I think are Urban Decay, Juvia's Place. They have a slight problem with pigmentation, but they do blend well. Slightly worse but also good, Jeffree Star Cosmetics and MAC Cosmetics. Terrible blending, ABH Norvina Volume 2 palette. I don't know, it just doesn't blend at all when you just take a brush and try to blend it out. It doesn't. You have to take a big fluffy brush and apply a teeny tiny amount of eyeshadows to create that illusion of a blend. That takes time, that takes effort. Why do I need to do that? I think I'd better go with Sugarpill. Also, if you have very oily lids, I would recommend you to get a translucent setting powder. You know, the loose one in a jar. It will really help to make things slightly better. However, the brands like NYX still won't work. Just for the look maybe, but not for wearing them out. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I really hope it helped. Please let me know if you want to also hear about eyeliners that work for oily lids, if you want to hear about lipsticks that work for dry lips, if you want to hear about something else that I can share, so that my makeup obsession doesn't feel like such a waste of money anymore, and so that you can actually use this channel to know what to buy. See you in my next video. Bye bye, loves.